you guys got out same year, 2013.
Yeah. So the way that his time set up, I actually got out a month earlier than him. And I ended up going to work for this maintenance company, and I was cleaning toilets, driving a bike to work, cleaning toilet bowls. That's what I did. I went from a counterfeiter to a toilet bowl cleaner, But I loved it.
Not just a counterfeiter.
Yeah, no.
Historically, you are one of the all-time greatest counterfeiters that's ever lived. That's ever been, known.
Yeah, that's been known. Yeah. So here I go from that to cleaning toilets, but I love my job. I loved it. It was really the first job I had in life, and man, it was a good feeling getting on my. I didn't have a car. I got out with nothing, And
what was that like for a kid who'd experienced the degree of poverty you experienced, and then hit the heights and had the access to the resources you had, and now here you are after all you'd been through, all you'd endured, all you learned. I mean, you'd established something that had never been done before. These hybrid bills where you did a thing where you used computer technology and you'd offset the computer technology with your artistic skill set. Like I want to definitely talk about the hybrid bills, but what it was psychologically, what was that like? I'm cleaning toilets. I can make money, like literally.
Well, at first it didn't. At first I was all right with it, right? I just did 6.5, almost 7 years. I was just with my son. So I just looked at the job as a means to get to my dream, right? Like I remember Jerry even said, you got to have staying power in the game to make it, right? Anytime you do anything out of desperation, you'll fail. That was something I learned from the knockaround guys, right? You got to have staying power, right? So for me, my job was going to be my staying power as I pursued my dream. And so in the beginning, it was all right. As time went on, I realized that to try to pursue the dream, it was going to be really difficult to do having an 8 to 10 hour, 8-10 hours devoted to a job every day, and then try to do my dream at night, which is what I was doing. But I did it for a while. My son ended up getting out. I got him a job as a porter at a car lot. And then I told him to go get his CDL. I said, look man, you could get it. The one good thing about truck driving, it pays decent and you could be a felon. You could get a CDL, you could drive, you can make decent money. And so he listened to me. He went and got his CDL. I was still working. I actually transferred jobs and started transporting vehicles. And, was doing my art, and I had a couple art shows. Good crowd came out, but didn't really sell nothing. It was one of them, drink the wine or drink the wine, eat the cheese and hit the door type thing, And so the art, that's how it is. So I started feeling a little funny about the art, where I started feeling insecure about, like, man, maybe this isn't what I'm going to be able to do in life. Because then I started learning how hard it is to be a high level artist, right? Like world renowned art. And there's not many really, right? There's musicians and there's actors.
I don't imagine you knew many of the few that existed. You didn't know any.
Yeah, I just knew the ones I read about, or, I started looking at, because when I went to prison, there was no social media. Now I'm out and there's iPhones and social media. So I slowly figured out how to learn that stuff. And I felt like I was a small fish in a big sea. Yeah, I was a counterfeiter, but that's how, and I had a good story, but that's how people kept looking at me, as a counterfeiter, not an artist. Oh, he's a counterfeiter just doing art, right? Not that he's an artist that did counterfeiting, right? So being put into that category, the art world wouldn't ever take me serious. They got their cats that are going to art school, getting art publishers, art managers, getting rep by the galleries. That's how you get into the big boy status. Not some cat getting out of prison who printed a little bit of money who wants to paint now, right? And so I ran up against that brick wall. And that's where I almost went back to printing, you know, after about, I don't know, maybe after about a year and a half of being free, working, you know, doing my art, I started to give up. Because my job only paid me $15 an hour. So I had a roommate, me and him got, you know, we were always beefing, right? So I could barely pay my child support. I mean, it was just tough. I found a whole new respect for people who worked, you know, like, man, because I was, you know, my first year as a janitor when I was cleaning toilet bowls, I actually had to shovel snow too when it snowed. So, man, I think that first year it snowed like 72 inches, man. It had like one of the worst snow years ever. And I shoveled every inch of it, you know? So I had a whole new respect for people that got up every morning and went and jammed for their money. And I'm glad I went through that. It humbled me. And it showed me how, because I had a problem when I just spend, like I had a printer behind me, you know? So it taught me how to, you know, go to Aldi's and spend $80 at Aldi's, man. I had to learn all kinds of things, you know? It was all new to me. Here I am 40, you know, but my son.
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, they sure do. You know, but here it is. My son, he's doing his thing. He's going getting his CDL. He got him a little trucking job at first. And here I am. He don't know it. He thinks I'm still working, but I've drifted back into the streets, you know? I had gave up for a second there. I went and borrowed some money off some cats and started hunting for the equipment to start doing what I did again, you know? And what was the irony in it this time is now here it is years later, everything had went digital, right? Everything went digital. So I was trying to get the equipment that I used to use, the offset press, and you couldn't find them no more. Everything was scrapped, right? So here I am buying an offset press from Cincinnati and then buying another one in Minnesota and then taking the parts off this one to put on this one. Man, I went on a wild goose chase for like 6 months trying to bring together all the equipment and literally rebuilt everything. I mean, I rebuilt a lot of stuff, you know? And just when I was getting ready to go, I had felt a little bit of heat on me. I didn't know what it was from. And so I backed off things, you know.
How did you discern that? Like when you said you felt the heat, what
well, you
were
know,
the things that stood out?
I was already on high alert because I was trying to get this equipment, right? So I was going through extreme ways to buy an offset press in Cincinnati, you know, driving down there, getting someone to get it for me. I mean, it was nuts what I was doing.
Because you had to keep your name away from anything.
Yeah, I had to keep my away from
with
anything related to that shit, you know? And so,
like you buying a magic marker.
Yeah, it would be
deemed like he's at it again.
He's at it again. Yeah, no, paper. I can't buy paper, man. I'll go to jail. You know? But, you know, so here I went through extremes to get this together, this operation, which is not no little operation, for one. And then I was waiting on one thing, and it was this liquid. And during that time, I can't really explain how I knew the heat had hit me. But there's, you know, you just feel like something's around you, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And whether it was from paranoia because I was getting close to firing it up, maybe that could have been it, right? Because I was right there. I had the paper. The machines were working. Everything was ready to go.
It's a heightened awareness. It's your subconscious is like your brain is telling your subconscious, yo, anything that don't fit with what we know to be normal, point that out to me. That's exactly. That sixth sense. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. And so what do you know? What happened? Right when I get this stuff, I started to feel things were getting back to normal. Come to find out, there was an operation in Chinatown a counterfeit operation in Chinatown, which is right next to my neighborhood.
Mm.
And the people got busted in Detroit taking money there. So I just said, oh, that's why they were on me, because of them. You know, they didn't know what I was doing, but I felt like whatever they were doing and the money was moving, of course, they're going to look up counterfeiters in the area. I pop up. And so they jammed on me, but didn't see me doing anything. And so they just ended up hitting the Chinese operation. So here I am. I'm about to go ahead and get going now. I feel good. Heat's gone. I got this little chemical which made the strip glow. It glowed red for hundreds. And I went home. I set it on the counter. I was just in and out. I had to go to the house and I was leaving. Well, what do you know? My son didn't go to work that day, and he just popped over just to see what I was up to. Door was open. He walks in. He goes to the counter. He picks that stuff up, and he knew right away what it was. And I tried to bullshit him when I came out. I was shocked. Hey, man, what you doing? I thought you were... He's like, what is this, man? What you doing with this? Why you have this? I said, oh, I'm using it for my art. He said, no, you're not. You're lying. This is bullshit. You're not using this for your art. You're back at it again, aren't you? And I said, nah, man, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. So now we're arguing. He goes out the house, jumps in his car. I run out after him. I jump in my car because I'm worried he's going to tell his mom. Right? His mom's still a Chicago police officer, man, you know? I need to get to him, man, and let him know, like, man, you can't be... I just dumped a bunch of money into it that I borrowed, for one, right? And where do you think he takes me, man? This kid drives back to the very spot that me and him got jammed up 7-8 years prior. Right on that corner. He jumps out of the car. I jump out. He's pointing to the curb. He's like, remember you sitting there crying? Remember that 8 years ago? I was a kid. You went to prison. I came after you. Remember that? And man, he was crying and yelling at me. And when he drove away, I just sat there just stunned, you know, like I knew I had to shut it down. I knew I had to shut it down. Shortly after that, not even a couple days after that, the woman who I was dating calls me and tells me she's pregnant. So my son does this. Then the girl that I'm dating calls me and tells me I'm pregnant. She's pregnant. And that was it. I walked away. I shut everything down. And it was a tough situation, you know, because I owed some cats some money for it. I ended up giving them some art, actually, to alleviate the situation.
In place?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't think they'd take it, but they did, man. I told him, I said, man, I'm going to become an artist, and this is going to be worth something. But this part I can't do. I got to walk. I can't do it. And I remember dude just smiling, man, just smiling. I said, you know what? I think you will make it, man. Let's see what happens. So he let me make it.
How'd that work out for him?
It was love, man. It was love at the moment, you know. And then I was sitting at Lacuna Lofts over here in Pilsen in Chicago. And I just felt like a loser. I mean, I had no job. I got a pregnant woman. My son's pissed at me. My art hadn't done nothing yet. I couldn't even print money right. Got that shit screwed up. I just felt like nothing could work, you know? And Joe Cacciatore, he owned the building, and he was walking through the lobby, and he liked me. Me and his son were really good friends, and he was the one who was Joe Cacciatore Jr. was running the building. But Joe Cacciatore Sr. was walking through, and he seen me. He's like, hey, what's wrong, you know? I was sitting just kind of, he could just tell I wasn't in a good place. And I told him, I said, man, I don't know what I can do in life. You know, I've been out 2 years now and I'm failing at everything. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? He said, we're doing something at the building and we need an artist intern. He goes, and could I pay you $5,500 a month to work for me? And that sounded like a lot of money to me, man, because I was doing $15 an hour, man. I wasn't getting nothing, you know? I said, man, absolutely I could work for that. He said, okay, you're going to come work for me. And that was the moment that my life changed. I learned at that moment that when all things seem, when you feel like everything has failed, that even yourself are a failure, but you have that one little glimpse of hope, right? And for me, it was my art, and then to walk away from something. Like I could have pressed that green button, man, and that green money would have been coming out, right? But I made the right decision, and I walked away from it. And by making that right decision, even though shit looked real gnarly, you know, no job, pregnant girl, son pissed, this and that. But because I made that right decision, Joe Cacciatore walked by and said, here, I'm going to give you a job. I waited patiently for it, not even knowing I was waiting for it. Right? And that was the moment that it hit. And I said, wow, if I just wait out the tough times, and which I could because I've been through some tough shit, and stop being, panicky when something bad is happening, and react right away, but sit there and just wait patiently and stay mentally prepared for the good's gonna come.
Opportunity favors the prepared.
Yeah. And so for me, I started working for Joe. Artists are coming in. I'm helping them. I'm starting to paint again. My wife has the baby. We name him Da Vinci, right? Life is looking good. My job ended with Joe after about 10 months, but I was good. I knew that I was all right, right? And so then I ended up painting houses for someone for a little while. And then that ended up coming to a close. And so about a year and a half after that happened with my son, I was working, you know. I'd paint at night, but I didn't really have it that I had to be an artist in life. I had it that I was all right. I had a little house, had my little family. I had this job. I'd start at 7, get off at 3, painting houses. It was hard, but it paid the bills. I still had a little time to paint at night, which is what I love to do. So I had found a rhythm that I liked.
And peace.
And peace, yeah. My son was proud of me again. I had my little baby. And then what happens? My house burns down. It came in threes. It was such a hit, right?
What caused that?
It was electrical fire. Yeah. I was working. So my boss, it came in threes. My boss, it was during the slow season. So he let me go because I was the low man on the totem pole.
This is the painting gig.
Painting gig, yeah.
A house painting gig.
Yeah, the house painting. Then I let someone use my car and they hit a pothole and they cracked something from underneath the car. So now I didn't have a car. And then I'm gone and I get a call from the fire marshal. My house was on fire. It all happened within like a month, man. Boom, 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 right? And I went into, when we were allowed to go into the house, I had been working on a painting about mental illness with my brother, right? Because I lost my brother to that mental illness. And when I walked, and he used to always tell me, art, it's going to be your art that frees you, man, that makes you feel secure. He believed in it. He believed in it more than me.
This was your younger brother.
My
correct?
younger brother, yeah. And what do you know? When I'm allowed to go back into the house, either the fire or the water destroyed everything, right? Holes here, it was just a mess. But there was that painting sitting in the corner, right? I even posted it on my Facebook years ago. You see the painting sitting there with with flames, look like they were coming up behind it. And I just felt like at that moment, man, whatever happened with the house, whatever happened with all the shit I just went through, that this is what I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't supposed to be painting houses. I wasn't supposed to be in this level of this is what my life was going to be. There was something more for me. And I had to believe in it again. And
The painting was undamaged?
it was undamaged. Yeah, you check it out on my Facebook. You go back, it was in that would have been in like 17, 18, something like that. I put the photo up there, and it was undamaged. Nothing wrong with it, man. You could see where it was burnt up behind it too. It was pretty intense.
Was the house a loss?
Yeah, we lost the house. Yeah,
The house was a loss, but the painting was
it's saved. Yeah,
that's
I still have it
mind-boggling.
too. I still have that painting too. Yeah, I still have it.
That's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I want to touch on this hybrid bill, this thing where you, before we get out of it completely, the aspect of your counterfeiting, this hybrid bill. How did you come up with this, and what was that process?
Well, so the money had always evolved, right? From the first time that I had my experience with Da Vinci when I was young, and he showed me the older techniques with the offset press, plate burners, photography, that type of stuff. And then from the new technology, who my wife, she was a techie my ex-wife, Natalie, she was a techie. So she was a savant in that area. She knew about the new printers and knew this. And so I basically, one of the hardest things to do on money were the serial numbers, right? To change them. When you use an offset press, you'd have to change the plate every time you'd want to change the numbers. So my first thought was, man, with the digital, I could use a program where I could change every single serial number. Wow, did that make a huge difference, right? So that's kind of how it started. Like what I basically, even like with my art now, it's the same thing. I get an idea and I'm like a scientist. I'll keep trying something and it'll fail, to fail. It might fail 1,000 times. And then boom, it works.
That's the scientific process. That is it.
I try this, don't work. Okay. And I'll have stuff written down everywhere, right? I'll try this, even with my colors, because I make a lot of my own colors. So I have to be very careful and write them down, because if I don't, I'll come back to something like, man, how did I make that? So I like to write a lot. I still handwrite everything.
Right.
I still handwrite stuff.
Excellent. That's the psychoneuromuscular activity. It imprints information on the brain.
I love to write.
It's too bad people type their lives away.
Yeah, I love to handwrite still, And so for me, that's how it starts, So I over time was able to see that the offset printing provided certain things, right? So like the color of money, you'd be shocked at how difficult it is to get the color of the money exact, right? You run a piece of paper through a regular laser or inkjet printer, it's not going to come out the color of money no matter what you do. There's always going to be an offness to it. But on an offset press, I can mix my own colors, right? So I can adjust, not using a computer, just using my eye. So I've always had a really good eye for color. I color match almost exactly. Even when I'm painting, I could get real almost exact to the color that I need. So that was the first thing I seen, that the offset press, I can get that color of money, that cream green look, greenback, right? And which is important because it covers the whole piece of paper. So I would run the paper through just that and just tint it. That's what I would call my tint process. Get my registration right, and then I would run the head and the border through. So I would put it through how many passes? Like It was like 5 passes because each one was different. So when I first started printing, and now the internet's getting more and more. I went to the federal government site, the Secret Service site, and watched how they made money. And what I realized is where all counterfeiters failed, they tried to run the image at one time. But as I watched how the U.S. Treasury printed, which they had it on the computer, you could go to the U.S. Treasury and look it up. I could see how they ran it separate, right? They would run this through, then they do the serial separate, they do the seal separate, and so I was like, okay, I don't have a 4-color, Heidelberg or anything, but I got a 1-color with good registration. So as long as I put my registration and it's perfect, I could just keep running it back through, keep running it back through, keep running it back through. Now some would get messed up, right? But a lot of them would look really good. And so basically, my process was I mimicked the feds just at a very small scale, and where the hybrid came in is, like I said, I was able to take the new technology to do like my seals, my serial numbers, the little shifting 100 in the bottom right-hand corner. I could do that with the laser or the inkjet, and it would go quick. But then there were certain things that just you couldn't get unless you created the color yourself. And that's what I would use the offset for. And so when they would come together, that's where the hybrid came, But like I said, it was a lot of trial and error. It took years to do. I mean, it was, a lot of time and effort that went into it. And the truth be is that my money, I didn't ever really get to experience my money at its best, unfortunately.
What do you mean?
So my money, every time I would make some, I would always learn something new to make it better, right? So, I think my first batch came out purple. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't green at all. That crap was purple, right? But as things progressed, the money became better and better and better. To where that last batch of money that I made, to me, was perfect. Everything. It had the fibers. It had every single thing that it needed to be on par with a real note. And I didn't ever get to use it.
Why?
I went to prison. Man. That was it. And so for me, years later, after I went to prison with my son and got out and almost went back to it, all those things that I had learned to make it the best that I hadn't used yet, I created a batch, but I didn't get to really do nothing with it because I went away. Now, the years later, when I'm going to try to redo this thing, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to really bust their ass with this thing, right? I know what to do now. Now I'm going to be able to make, and I'm an artist now, so I've been painting, so my eyes are different. Everything's changed. But my son saved my life, right? My son's coming in and walking in that day shut the whole program down. And then my wife being pregnant, those two things saved my life. And then Joe Cacciatore. So as far as the hybrid was concerned, that's basically what it is just a process of trial and error. Just like life, just like my art. My art's the same way. Man, I do some real complicated shit,
Yes, you do.
I mean, I even think that sometimes my art's a little bit ahead of its time because people look at it, they don't get it yet.
I agree.
They will 10 years from now, 20 years from now, maybe when I'm dead. And then they'll be like, holy shit, this dude was doing some wild stuff. Right now, they don't get it. Just a cool image, but they will one day, but it's the same thing. When I want to put a hidden hologram in the canvas, right? How do I do that? I can't go buy the canvas with a hologram in it. I got to put it in there, right? So now I got to experiment and figure it out. I'm actually about to do holograms today, right? But it's it's just that curiosity. You know, I tell people that our minds are equipped with some pretty amazing tools to do great things, right? And if you don't allow failure to discourage you, then you can do those great things. Because your mind is made to respond, to overcome, right? If I try this and it don't work, let me try it again. If it don't work, I teach my son Da Vinci that now. He's trying things that aren't working, and I'll guide him. I won't show him how to do it. I'll guide him to keep trying until he figures it out.
Right. Develop a process of his
Develop
own.
a process of elimination until you find the right thing. And I use it in all things of life now, not just my art, you know, but even in my own relationship with my wife. You know, when I see things are going the wrong way, I'll step back and try to figure, I'll say, okay, what am I doing? I'm not thinking what she's doing. I'm going to think, what am I doing, right? Now, some things are irreversible, but, you know, there's things that is, if you make the right decisions and the right movements, things can grow. And so for me, you know, it's the way I live now. Everything is about, you know, even with bad relationships, you know, with friendships, you know, I've had to get rid of friendships because they were causing certain failures, right? And so I finally had to say, okay, there's a reason why this keeps happening, and I need to let go of this relationship because it's not going to change, right? So for me, I just think the process of elimination and failure until you create success is so important for people. And that's basically how I've done it, you know? That's how I'm here right now. Yep.
Yeah. So I got two questions about the counterfeiting part. What were or are, you know, to the degree that you are even hip to this, the common things that got counterfeiters caught up? What were the common mistakes that they were making?
I mean, most counterfeiters, they've either been arrested because of other people telling on them, right? Who were caught with the money, or spending it in really ridiculous manners, right? You know, a guy pays his rent with the counterfeit money, right? You know, or he goes and pays his car payment with the counterfeit money. Like I've heard some really ridiculousness, right? Using the money in your area will get you jammed up quick. Man, sometimes I drive 10 hours to spend and then come back, you know?
That's right.
You know, so, you know.
Don't shit where you sleep.
Yeah, but the majority of it is with most criminal cases is someone hipped them to it, right? Somebody told them, hey, this cat's doing this or whatnot, you know, to get out of their thing. And then a lot of times, like I said, counterfeiting is so addictive that the feds, all they got to do is sit back and wait. They know within, you know, 90 days to a year, the likelihood of you doing it again is really high. So if bills are popping up, you know, we're going to come get you, you know, or the counterfeit money's not that good. That's another way that cats get caught, you know. They're making money that's just not up to the standard. And that's why I used to burn a lot of money. If I didn't feel like the money was good, I'd throw it in the fire, you know?
That's right.
Start over again.
Right.
I haven't burnt any art yet, but I might soon. I ain't burning I'm not burning no paintings in, but yeah.
You better not yours.
Yeah. But,
you mentioned that your lady was tech savvy. You're not talking about the one who ended up becoming a cop, are you?
No, it was my girl Natalie. She became my wife. I had 3 kids with her. She's from Texas. I met her when I was in Texas, and she was working as a computers were still, you know, the internet was still just being used for college purposes at the time. And so she was, where she worked at tech support for this big company, she did pretty well. And so she was always up to date with new technology and new equipment, and which was perfect for me because, and then she loved the that I was from Chicago. And so she wanted to be kind of the bad girl. And I helped her do that. Let's make some money, girl. And we went on a run, we went on a run for a while. But yeah.
The amount, what do you believe was the total of all the paper that you printed over your career? Which your career was technically on and off for about 15 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's about 15. I that question's hard to answer because I don't know, right? So any number I give would not be correct, because I really
Would
don't
you say
know.
it was?
I mean, I could say 100 million, 10 million, 5 million, I mean, there's the thing about how much I printed is that I did what I needed, right? I wasn't that guy up in Canada printing 250 million in 20s, which I don't even know how it's possible, right? You know what I'm saying? You know how much 250 million in 20s would be, man? You ever see $1 million in 20s? That's a lot of paper, dog. So,
Yes.
I don't need to say how much I printed because it's not how much, but it was how good.
Yes.
Right? I can tell you it was the best, right? That's what I can tell you. My money was the best on the street. How much? I don't know. It's kind of like my art. I'm stingy with it, right? I make it real difficult to get my paintings, And it was the same way with the money. And that's why I commanded such a high price for it. Most counterfeiters get 10 cents on the dollar. I was getting 30 for a reason, When they looked at it, when you looked at it and you felt it and you held it up and you marked it, you're like, damn, how is this not real, That's what that was what was always important to me.
Right.
It wasn't how much I did, It was how good it was, And
Right.
yeah, so yeah, but
Right.
I could tell you this much. It was a lot. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot for a lot of years, But again, man, I wasn't really that greedy though, I didn't ever have those. For one, it was hard to make. My money wasn't easy to make, man. It went through a lot. It went through like 12 different steps, from cutting out the paper, putting the paper on carrier papers, taking the pictures, burning the plates, mixing the ink, putting it together, making the strips, making the watermarks, right? Like it wasn't I just threw it in the printer and boom, it came out. No. And it was handcrafted. My hands made each and everything, I'd have to put super glue on my fingertips so I wouldn't get fingers, because you couldn't wear gloves because it'd get all messed up. So I had to figure out a thing. And that shit from Gone in 60 Seconds where he pulled out the thing, that shit didn't work either, man, So I would put super glue. So my fingertips were always hard, man. If you shook my hand, you'd be like, damn, dog, what's wrong with you, man? You're scratching me up, Because my fingertips were always covered with super glue, So it was a hard process. And so it wasn't, like I could make 100 million. I couldn't print 100 million. It wasn't realistic. And for one, where would I store it all, So I was the type of cat, man, that I print 500,000 usually was a good run for me. After it was all said and done, I'd probably end up with like maybe, 450, 400, because some would get messed up and some wouldn't look right, And then I would move that. I would move cautiously, I didn't have to like go extra, man. Here I am with this cat, I was crazy some of the ways that I'd sell you the money. You'd get a phone in the mail, just a flip phone in the mail. You'd open it up and it would be me calling you. That's how I mean, I did some wild shit, man. I was like, real cautious with the way I moved with it,